Welcome to Pack the Plaza. My name is Branden Smith, and I'm so excited to be speaking tonight to all of you. Before I get started, here is some information about me that I feel like you should know before you hear kind of the deep and the gritty stuff. So, first, I was born and raised in Ohio, and I moved here my seventh grade year with just my immediate family. So that consists of my brother, who he's pretty much my best friend. He's 3 years older than I am. Some of you have met him at different retreats that we've gone on. And then I also have a younger sister, which is my dog named Zoe. She is a pit bull and a chocolate lab mix. We got her when we moved here to Texas. And so I'm from Dallas, and my immediate family lives there. Everyone else is in Ohio. We visit there. So my blood is naturally pretty cold, right? I do not like these 80-degree days at the end of February. I love the snow. I love snowball fights. I love sledding. So this is not ideal. Um, yeah, that's what I want to tell you about myself before I got started. But now, let's get into the fun part. So tonight I'm going to be sharing my story with all of you. And rather than starting from the beginning, I'm going to go back just a couple of months to last semester's Pack the Plaza. I sat in one of those chairs just like all of you are right now, and I listened to my friend Parise, who just introduced me, share her story. Hearing her story affirmed my own belief, and I saw what it's like to share your testimony in front of others. I felt called to share my own story, and I went up to my friend Leo, who is one of the interns here, my CO2 partner, and I told him, okay, Leo, I think I want to share my story sometime at Pack the Plaza. And this was last semester, let me tell you. And I said, I don't think I'm ready next semester. I don't think my story, I think I'm still growing, still learning. I don't think I'm ready. Fast forward a couple weeks later, still on my mind, I see my other friend Abil, who is also an intern at LFC. And I'm telling him, I say, I think I want to share my story sometime. And I'm like, no, not next semester. I'm not ready yet. So word goes around, names start getting dropped in front of the boss, and here I am sharing my story at Pack the Plaza, right? So I say all of this to tell you, God's timing always wins over your own timing. God has shown me in the past couple months that there's no better timing than now for me to share my story with all of you. And along with this, I also believe that each of you are here today for a specific reason. God does not do things on accident. And I hope and have been praying the past couple of days that what I say tonight speaks to you and that the Lord is able to open your heart to what I'm about to share. So with that, let's dive into my life. So as a child, I could not have asked for a better family and situation in which to grow up in. My parents are both followers of Christ, and so I grew up spending hours of my week each day or each week at the church. Sunday morning service, Sunday morning Bible study, Wednesday night Bible study, prayers before breakfast, lunch, dinner, prayers before bed. Don't forget about memorizing the Bible verses. My family always spent lots of the weekends with my aunts and uncles and cousins who were also believers in Christ. And so I was surrounded by a body of believers that fed into me constantly and provided me with a picture of what a follower of Jesus should look like. And I followed suit. I enjoyed going to church and learning about Jesus. I attended my Sunday school classes and always was the first to answer. I gave 10% of my allowance as an offering each week. And all these practices and all the information that I was so eagerly obtaining is good and right, and I'm so thankful to the Lord for how he has raised me. All of these teachings and practices would become the foundation of my life with Christ. And despite my outward appearance and all the physical performance I was engaged in, my heart did not truly know the Lord yet. There was no intimacy, no personal relationship with Christ, and I was living a life that I thought aligned with what Christianity says, but I remained dead in my heart because I did not have a personal relationship with my Creator. God was standing right in front of me, nurturing me, caring for me, loving me, but I kept my eyes on the ground and missed the beauty that awaited me if I just looked up. This was my life for the first 16 years. I served God, but I did not know God. I loved my friends and family. I read my Bible. I said my prayers, but I did not wholly accept the King of the universe, who had already accepted me as his own before I was even born. The most important moment of my life, and this is not an exaggeration, occurred during the winter of my sophomore year of high school. My church back in Dallas would go on winter retreats and spring retreats and summer retreats a couple of times each year, and it was February of 2020 and time for our winter retreat. At this retreat, I did all that I knew to do. I took notes on the sermons, sung the worship songs, answered my small group leaders' questions, and did my quiet time. But that Saturday night, my life was forever changed. We were in the gymnasium singing worship songs after the speaker had shared his message. And there was a longing in my heart for something deeper, an invitation to go further than simply singing worship songs or saying my prayers. I needed to know this God. I needed him in every fiber of my being. As we sang these worship songs, I sat down on the carpeted floor and just listened. I brought all my sin and shame, all my goodness and striving. I laid down all that I had and all that I am, and I prayed for presence. I cried out, God, I need you. And in that moment of submission, the Lord spoke to me so clearly. I heard his voice, and what he said to me is my story. It is who I am. He said, you are mine, and I am yours. This God that I had served for so long is so much more than just someone we read about in the Bible or pray to before bed. He is mine, and I am his. He just wants me, not what I can do or say or serve. He just wants me, and he just wants you guys too. Becoming a Christian is the act of laying ourselves down before God and saying, Abba, Father, I have nothing, and yet you have given me everything. Not my strength, but yours, Lord. Make me weak so that you shine through. He has written his name over our hearts before we were even born, and he sent his Son so that the gift of his love and goodness is free to us. Jesus purchased all of our shortcomings and failure in full on the cross, and now he waits for us to run to his open arms. In the perfect moment, the February in 2020, God planted a seed inside of my heart that he will protect and hold dear for eternity. My roots run deep, but that is something I have had to learn since he saved me. I became a believer and a follower of Christ in 2020, and then I ran. I searched the world. I gave in to my desires and chased human pleasure. I burned my tree of life that had barely just begun to sprout, and the only thing that remained was the small seed he had just planted. The following month of 2020, I fell into a period of sin that would consume the rest of my time in high school. I got into a relationship with an unbeliever who steered my heart in the opposite direction of the Lord. With this relationship came my experience of worldly pleasure and human love, because let me tell you, I fell in love. My heart has always been full of compassion and the need to love, and so being in a relationship, this need to love was exaggerated to a whole new level. All of my thought and desire went to my new love, and for the next year, I spent every moment of my day thinking about this person. They consumed my every thought and desire and stole my heart from the Lord. I would hang out with them 3 days a week, then 4 days, then 5 days, till I was seeing them every day of the week. They were my best friend, my go-to, my comfort and desire. But I also lied to my parents and family about where I was going, who I was seeing, what I was doing an innumerable amount of times, and the time I spent with this person was far from holy. I gave in to the desire of my flesh and began having sex until the characteristic, personal love I felt was masked by a physical love that seemed neither of us could go without. My mind was in shambles. I was deceiving my family, sinning in ways that I knew deep inside went against the will of my Heavenly Father, and yet loving this person felt so good. While I was in this relationship, the way that I viewed myself significantly shifted. I traded the love I had for God and the love I had for myself for this worldly love that left me empty. Any problem that I had within this relationship, any imperfection within my own life, and any moment of uncertainty all fed into a constant self-degradation and self-condemnation till I could barely look at myself. As self-hatred began to build, my relationship began to fall. After 13 months, at the end of my junior year, the situation, all the lies sneaking around, self-blame, became too much for either of us to handle, and we broke up. Even after the breakup, I continued to hook up with this person and hang out with them multiple times a week. Nothing really changed, except for now there was no label to our relationship, and my heart was shattered. In that moment, and for the coming weeks, I felt as though I had lost the center of my world. I blamed every single piece of this relationship's failure on myself, and instead of turning to God for comfort, I turned to the source of the anguish. Heartbreak is a type of pain that is worse than anything else, and I marinated in heartbreak for the next year. Pushing God aside had become the norm, and the rest of my time in high school, I walked around with a torn heart and condemnation as the center of my life. And then I went to college, a restart that I was in desperate need of. With physical separation from my high school lover, I was able to begin thinking about my future and what I wanted for myself. In all of my wondering and searching of this world, the Lord remained faithful. He waited with wide open arms for the day that I would search him out again. I began focusing on my relationship with the Lord, and through his bountiful love and healing, I was able to move past the pain of my relationship in high school. My desire to love passionately was now being applied to the fountain and source of that very love. His faithfulness is true and constant and steady, and I'm here today to tell you that I've tasted what this world can offer, and it is sweet. But I'm also here to tell you that the sweetness of this world is nothing compared to the overwhelming, mouth-watering, savory blood of Christ. It is only by the blood. Only he can satisfy. I am a living testament that the glory of Christ is so much sweeter than anything else this world has to offer. I could not have learned that if it wasn't for the relationship I had in high school. My first couple of months in college were a time of healing, and then the Lord began to teach me new things about who he is. I began to pray fervently and spent time learning about my God. I plugged myself into the church and sought out community with other believers, but my life was split in two. One half of me longed for everything that Christ could offer, while the other half clung to my past. Despite this time of spiritual growth, leftover condemnation and self-hatred from high school remained in my mind and spread over my being. Passions that I held dear turned into pain and overbearing weights that I could not carry half-heartedly. I loved to exercise, but the devil twisted this passion into self-hatred and a constant need to achieve. I began going to the gym 7 days a week, put myself through grueling workouts in an attempt to achieve physical perfection. At the same time, my love for food and nutrition was twisted into a need to control every part of what went into my body. I told myself I was eating enough, when in reality, all I was eating was a couple of vegetables and some empty calories. I lifted weights until I physically could not anymore, so then I began to run, 10, then 15, then 20 miles a week until I could barely walk. I lost 20 pounds in 10 weeks, and then another 10 pounds in 4 weeks. I would look at myself in the mirror and pinch every ounce of fat that I could find on my body. And when there was no fat left to pinch, I would curl up into a ball and sob because I knew what was left of me was a waste of space. I put a sticky note on my mirror that read, "You are fearfully and wonderfully made," as I clung to what remained of my faith. But each time I read those words and thought about my body, I would be overwhelmed with self-hatred. I developed an eating disorder and muscular dysmorphia, and by winter break of my freshman year, I weighed 107 pounds. My family and friends began to notice my weight loss and demeanor change and tried to help me get better. But it wasn't until a winter retreat at LFC that my life truly changed. That year, we went to Port Aransas for the first time in January, and I had the privilege to go with them on the winter retreat. At the lowest of lows, when I had truly hit rock bottom, God showed his faithfulness to me once more. We had just finished hearing a lesson from our speaker, and as the band played in the background, we took communion. I took a cup of the red juice and a small cracker, and I sat on the ground of the worship center. Holding these symbols in my hand, I felt the weight of what my life had come to bearing down on my entire being. I was so tired of worrying about what I ate or if I got to take a walk after each meal. I was tired of looking at myself and seeing imperfection. I was tired of hating who I was. I was tired of being tired. So much of my mind was consumed by what I ate and drank and did, and here I was about to eat a stale cracker and drink some sugary juice. In that moment, I was reminded of what this bread and wine represented, the ultimate sacrifice, Christ's body physically crushed and broken for me, his blood poured out over my life so that I could be free. As I sat there, body in one hand, blood in the other, the Lord spoke to me for the second time. 2 words that represent his death on the cross that has set me free forever. Eat, drink. After hearing those 2 words, my mind was flooded with the understanding of the weight of the cross and the significance of communion. Christ had invited me to his table, and at his table, I did not have to worry about how much I ate. I could drink whatever I wanted without guilt or shame. He sets the table. He serves me my meal. He cleans the dishes as I get to sit. I don't need a walk after dinner. His company, his presence is enough. I am left full, satisfied, and that is only by the blood. I like to think of my life up until this moment on the floor at Port Aransas as a table with a bunch of blocks on it. Each block represents a different, uniquely designed part of my life that the Lord has blessed me with. One block represents my family. One is my friends and the relationships I have. Another is passions, such as fitness or sports. Each of these blocks is piled up on top of one another in a big stack that rests on the table. The table represents my firm foundation, the cornerstone, my rock, Jesus Christ. Before this moment at Port Aransas, these blocks were piled up in a random fashion that I had designed. They rested on the Lord, but they were not built up by the Lord in the way he had planned. Freshman year was a period of my life in which the Lord knocked all of these blocks off the table until the only thing that I had left was him. With nothing else left in my life to define me or represent who I am, God remained. And now, this past year, God has been rebuilding the blocks of my life his way, not my own. Every piece that he adds to the table is perfect, and the orientation of these blocks is so much greater than anything I could design on my own. This doesn't mean that the Lord will not knock these blocks off the table again in the future, or that my journey with him is anywhere near complete. I have learned what it means to trust in the Lord fully and to give him every part of me. He is growing me into my true self and reshaping my desires to align with his. Matthew 7:25 says, "And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock." In all the trials of my past, and in all the tribulation that's still to come, the Lord's faithfulness will remain and will not fail. This past year, I have gotten to see and experience the faithfulness of God in my life and around me. His faithfulness to me has never been more evident than it has in the past couple of months. But as I'm rebuilding and learning about my God, I have come to understand that his faithfulness has been the same every moment of my life. In the mountains and in the valleys, when I can see it and when I cannot, he is my stronghold and my sure and steady hand that guides me. Nothing that the Lord does is by accident, and he is a God that redeems his children. Now, in a couple of moments, we're all going to go back into the routine of our lives. Maybe we have exams this week. Maybe we have some fun plans. But I want to take these last couple of moments to slow down and just listen to what the Lord has for each of you. I want everyone to close their eyes for a moment. Close them. Take a big breath through your nose and then slowly exhale through your mouth like you're trying to fog up a glass or a cold window. Now listen to these words. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Are you hurting and broken within, overwhelmed by the weight of your sin? Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows, trade them for joy. From the ashes, a new life is born. Jesus is calling. I invite you all tonight to step into Jesus' calling. I appreciate you all listening to my story. Thanks be to God.